No! No riddles. Is there an area I can go to where it's just quiet? Whatever. We'll just do it in this menu. All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's 15 minutes a game. I just finished God of War Ragnarok, or at least the main story. There's still stuff to do, but I've played through probably a good 85 to 90% of all the content in this game. I think that's enough for me to like give adequate thoughts on the game. So let's try and separate this out between gameplay, story, and I guess the look of the game at some point. So let's start with the look of the game. I think the game looks really good. I mean, it's a PS5. This is 2022. It's 2023 now. So I don't expect the game to look bad. There are some noticeable changes. I think like the armor, like you'll notice is a little animated. I don't think they did that in the last game. Maybe my memory is wrong. As you upgrade your armor, like it looks like it does change appearance. At least some of the armor does. That's a nice touch. That I really appreciate it. The axe, the blades. I believe those always changed appearance as you upgraded in the last game. So that's not too much to talk about there. Game looks good. I can't say the game doesn't look good. It looks really good. Gameplay. Gameplay is just as good as the last game. And I guess that's a compliment. There were some things that they added to the game to kind of like spice it up a little bit, like holding triangle with the axe for permafrost, and you do like a little bit more damage for the next attack. It would unlock some special moves. I didn't find myself using that very often, and the same with the blades. So not much changed there. I was playing on Give Me God of War difficulty, so that might limit some of the stuff that I could do and not die. So maybe I'm not the best for experience there. But I had fun with the gameplay. A new weapon they added was the spear. I actually kind of really like the spear. It honestly might be my favorite weapon at this point. So I'm like kind of surprised because in the last game, they brought back the blades, and it was my least favorite weapon. I didn't like it. I pretty much stuck to the axe unless the blades were an absolute necessity. Same can be said here. Blades still least favorite weapon, but the spear, it's a nice, more ranged weapon for Kratos. I think it's more interesting. You're able to like siphon off the elements of your enemies and kind of use it against them. That's like a really cool concept. So I really enjoyed it. It was like it's the most interesting weapon of the three by far, just in terms of what it can do. It's not like necessarily the strongest, but it's like it's got a lot of bells and whistles to it, and I really appreciated that. And I was surprised by how much it kind of grew on me, to where it would be my default for at least crowded situations, and I wasn't even using the axe as much. And I think that's kind of a big hurdle for this game to do, because I think everybody loves the axe. So to introduce a new weapon in the second game, and at least for me, for it to be like my favorite, that's like it's a high bar to clear. So I liked it. New enemy types. There are a few this game that were new. It's more than a few. There's a lot that is new. They reused a lot of I think pretty much every enemy from the last game is brought, or every mob from the last game is brought into this game. More sparingly so. They do rely on their new ones more than the old ones. But I will say, I feel like it does run into the same issue. One of the few issues I had with the last game is there are repetitive bosses, and I guess specifically bosses, mini bosses. You see the phantoms a lot. You see the variations of dragons a lot. Yeah, they reuse a lot of the bosses. I mean, like, it's still kind of the same as the last game. So I'm kind of... There was more to cycle through, but the game is also longer, and there's more content in this game. So the ratio is probably of repetitive bosses is about the same as it was last game. So I don't think they really improved on that too much. If I had to, like, pinpoint some complaints. Of course, I do a lot of the optional stuff. I've done a lot of the optional stuff. And I feel like this time around there is more optional stuff, but I feel like it's to the game's detriment. I felt more like I was checking off lists than I was like engaged in a lot of the side missions. That's not to say there's no good side missions. I thought like the side mission with Mimir, where you were like freeing like this beast that he had trapped when he was working with Odin. I thought that was a really good mission. It was story driven, but a lot of the missions are just like my least favorite one was beating 8 dragons in the crater area. And the crater area wasn't a lot of fun for me because it was just like, again, I just feel like I'm checking off lists of things to do. There were 8 dragons, like, and they didn't feel unique. They didn't feel very unique from each other. They were just 8 dragons to kill. And I get you need the dragon stuff to build the dragon armor, but still, after fighting, like, there's probably at least 10 dragon fights in this game. Where in the last game, I think there were 4 dragons, and I think only 1 dragon fight. But it made the dragon feel unique, as a dragon should be. But when you throw 10 dragons at me, like it loses that luster, and it just becomes like, another box to check. I feel like a lot of the side missions were hit or miss. There was just like not enough story to ground them to make them interesting. Where I feel as the last game, a lot of the side missions, or at least a good chunk of the side missions, were grounded in like an engaging story. Like if I had a wish for next game, I would say like less side stuff, but like more involved side stuff. But I mean, there were good ones. The one with Mimir, the one with Freya for the wedding, that was like a character driven thing. But a lot of the side missions, they were just kind of fell flat for me. And again, I think the game just uses more as kind of to their detriment. Like there's like last game there were, I think I might be wrong, 9 Valkyries. This game there are 12 Berserkers, which are the equivalent. Like it's just more for the sake of more. I haven't beat all the Berserkers yet. Maybe my opinion on that will change. But it's just, again, more to check off a list, I feel, as opposed to being engaging. I don't even think the Berserkers, at least at this moment, are as engaging. At least when I was doing the Valkyries in the last game, it was tied to this, like, interesting story of how the Valkyries were kind of corrupted and were freeing them. The Berserkers were just killing them. Like, they're bad dudes and we're killing them. It's very simple. It doesn't make me too interested in completing it outside of the challenge of doing so. Yeah, I don't know if I've missed too many other things on gameplay. I think the gameplay is on par with the last game. I think it like drops the ball on some of the more side stuff, which is optional stuff to do. You don't have to do it, but it's in the game. Like, and I played it, so I'm gonna like rate off that. You might have a better experience if you like, skip some of the tedious side stuff. I feel. Let's see. So the last part, I guess, is the story. I think the story was, at least for me, a little hit or miss. There were sections of the game where I was like, why are we here? Like, why are we doing this? Like the first, I think Alfheim is the light elf, dark elf area. When I was playing that mission with Tyr, Kratos, and boy Atreus, I was like, man, this part is not good. It really just slowed it down to a halt, and there wasn't much purpose to doing that section, I found. And that repeated with some other sections in the game where it was just like, it was like an in-between. It was as if the main story was loading in the background, but they had to throw us somewhere to do something where I didn't feel like there was a lot of purpose. As opposed to the last game where it was... And I guess I should say, I felt a lot of times in the story we didn't have purpose. Or our purpose was a... what am I looking for? Like a... I don't know. I think you can't hold it. It wasn't a. I don't know why I'm losing the word. There was no like solid goal. a lot of the time in the game. It seemed like our goal was to just like, you know, not let Atreus do a thing, or um, it was seems like we were just twiddling our thumbs because we were in disagreement for a good part of the game, and that wasn't very interesting because it seemed like a big part of the game. Whereas the last game, you had a goal the entire game, and it was simple. It was like you wanted to go on top of the mountain and spread the mother's ashes. That was the goal the entire game. It never changed. It never like faltered. It was a more focused story. Whereas I feel like this story was not very focused. Not to say it didn't have its good moments. I think the ending was really good. The Atreus sections, I was kind of surprised because like I really liked the Atreus sections. Um, of course, they were like in parts of the story where like you couldn't get sidetracked, so that probably helped. But it was like I'm surprised. Like I liked playing as Atreus. I wouldn't mind a game that like put Atreus in the driver's seat, as they seem to be implying for the next one. I wouldn't mind that. I think they set that up really well. Other parts of the story, I think Atreus's arc is really interesting. I think it's really done well. The father son elements in this story, um, I think, are just as good, but there's just too much filler in the story for me. Like things that didn't necessarily seem like they needed to be there, but that were there. And maybe on subsequent playthroughs, like it'll make a little more sense for me. But there were just so many sections where I was like, I don't care. Like, get me back to, father and son like story time. Um, the Freya arc, I liked Freya in this game. Freya was really good. I'm glad she's like a side character that we could use. I think she was like really good. I enjoyed her arc. I'm kind of like I thought she would be an enemy like the entire game, but she was not. So that kind of surprised me. So I was happy with that. Thor and Odin, the villains, I liked a lot. I was not expecting Thor to be the way he was, and I was not expecting Odin to be the way he was. Odin kind of seemed like a mob boss or something, like a mafia leader. And but I really enjoyed that take. That was like a really interesting take, and I loved Odin and I loved Thor, and all the Asgard characters. Like they're really good. I liked them. I wish more of the focus of the game was like on them specifically. Um, my biggest issue with the story in the game is I think it spends too much time on like fighting fate, fighting destiny, which I'm not very familiar with Norse mythology. Maybe that's a big part of Norse mythology. I know that's a big part of Greek and Roman mythology, so it's probably the same for Norse. But regardless, it's just like I don't find prophecies that interesting of a storytelling element. So just because it's like it pretty much tells the whole story, or at least 99% of the story, and I'm sure the ending is always going to change with the prophecy storyline, but like where the game is going to go. Like it tells you all the beats ahead of time. And I think that's I don't know, I just don't think it's an interesting story to tell. I think it's like games are hard to make, stories are really hard to make, so I don't want to criticize too heavily. Not that I have that big of an audience to begin with, but I think it's like a crutch for storytelling. It might have been a necessary one, but it didn't make it an interesting one. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, the prophecies were just. It was just like something I was not into, and just choosing your own destiny. I feel like that's stuff that was ground that was already tread in the original God of War series. Like I could have done without the prophecy. I think Odin's motivation to just know everything, and us having to prevent that, would be a more compelling singular force for the villain than like we're trying to do this fate stuff. And I acknowledge that the fate is a big in the character development of Atreus, and I guess Freya even in that case, and Ager Boda, etc., etc. But still, it's just like I could have done without it. It's just I think it's like a big spoil. I think it's like big spoilers for the game to to know 90% of it ahead of time. I lose interest in that. But other than that, I think the game is really good. I don't think it's as good as the first one, um, but it's good. I mean, I'm not gonna deny it's not good. I remember when this game came out, there were rumors. I don't know if it was rumors, but there more or less like tweets going around that saying that like or news articles saying that the developers of this game were worried that it was not going to be good or it was not going to be well received, and it was well received, and it deserves to be well received. But I think maybe if those stories are true, I think what they were worried about was the parts of the plot that are a little more convoluted, or the parts of the plot that really slow down everything to a halt, like every single time that they come out. Like I could see why, they might have been worried, and they made a good game. Like I'm not gonna say they didn't make a good game. It's just in terms of the story, like a lot of the stuff, it just a good chunk of the stuff fell flat with me. With the side stuff in the game, a lot of the stuff falls flat with me. It's just checking things off a list. I would rather have less and more engaging side missions than more that are just check off a list. Bigger, not always better. It's hard with sequels. I understand that, but still, like if I can critique for 20 minutes, please let me. I think that's it. I mean, I think the game is worth buying. I think it's worth buying full price. I won't deny that. It's fun. It is really fun to play. It's just I wish it was a little more streamlined, like the first game. A little bit more of a simple story. And the next game, like I have no idea where they're going with the next game. It might just be an Atreus-centered thing, which I wouldn't mind, and I think would be interesting place to take it. In the final, Giant's Cabinet, whatever you call those. It looks like they had like the Egyptian kind of like sarcophagus statue things there, so maybe they'll explore some Egyptian mythology next. Like we already did. I don't know where they go with Norse mythology after this necessarily. I don't know where Kratos fits into the next part of the story necessarily. I don't know if his arc is done. But I'm very interested to play the next game. Atreus is to me seems like he'll be a good lead character for the next game, and one I'll support. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. It's worth buying. It's a good game. I hope I didn't stay too on the negative side for too long, but those are my thoughts. So I want to get them out. We are not done playing the game. We still have the Berserkers to beat, and I want to do the Ravens. I guess I want to do the Asgard side mission that just popped. But after that, we will be done. So hopefully by the end of January, I'll be done. We got a ways to go. If the Berserkers are as challenging as the Valkyries were in the last game, we got like 8 more or 7 more to do. So it's a lot to do, but we'll get it done. Thank you guys for watching the review. Thank you to those who tuned in on the stream. If you want to leave a like, subscribe, you can. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I really appreciate it. There'll be more God of War Ragnarok on the channel soon. And the next game we're likely to play on the channel is the Harry Potter game that comes out in February. I hope you guys can tune in for that as well. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.